Hi, my name is Susan Beaumont, and I am a consultant that's working with the United Methodist Churches of Greater New Jersey around the concept of tending the soul of the institution. So one of the ways in which we work with the soulfulness of an organization, a congregation, the conference, is through tending the stories that we tell. The stories that we tell often are indicative of deep seated values and principles that we hold to be true. And the way that a congregation has chosen to remember its events and to craft them into stories that people tell to one another is pretty significant from a leadership perspective. It really says something about the soulfulness of the place. And I want to share with you today a particular story from a congregation that I belonged to for a period of 20 years. I was not the pastoral leader of this congregation. One of the heroes in our congregation was a woman by the name of Anna B. Quick. And Anna's picture hangs in the lobby of that congregation. You can't attend there for any more than 3 months without hearing her name and something about her story. And if you attend a membership class, you're taught the story of Anna B. Quick. And here's the story that the congregation liked to teach about her. She was a woman who lived in the life of the congregation just before the Great Depression, and the congregation was really not doing well at the time. They had really ceased to be a congregation for all practical purposes. 100 years of history behind them. They had lost the ability to hire a pastor. The building was awful and run down, and actually there wasn't even a worshiping community left anymore. But the story goes that Anna B. Quick saved the day because in that dark period, she chose to show up every Sunday and open the doors and light the lights in case someone might come to pray with her on that day. And she did that over and over, week after week. And Anna also filed the annual reports that kept the congregation a legal entity. And the story is taught in this way to show Anna as hero, as a person who rode out a really rough time, and eventually the congregation rebirthed itself. And she's credited with having sustained the congregation for the period of time that rebirth took. What was interesting to me as a person in that congregation who heard that story all the time was, why did we tell that portion of the story? And what was the part of the story about how the rebirth actually took place? So I went and I talked to the pastor about that. He didn't know either. So he went into the archives of the congregation and actually researched the story and came back all excited saying, you won't believe how this story actually ends. The story actually ends in that Anna and a few others in the church dug deep into their pockets, gave sacrificially to come up with money in order to hire a new pastor. The new pastor came in and also gave sacrificially so that they could destroy the old building, rebuild it, and with the arrival of the new pastor in the new building, the revitalization began to take place. But isn't it interesting that the congregation chooses not to tell that daring part of the story? The part of the story that they like to tell is about Anna's faithfulness. They like to tell about how she didn't do anything different. She just stayed, and she did the same thing over and over and over again until magically the Holy Spirit revitalized the place, leaving out all of the important details of the story that dealt with her sacrificial giving and the risk that she took, that she and others took in order to make that change happen. Really interesting part of working with story and congregations is that the pastor then was able to take that story from long ago and bring it into the present and use Anna's story to help the congregation make some bold moves that they needed to take. He was able to teach the people the real story that they had stopped telling, the story about taking risk, the story about reaching out beyond comfort zones, and he was able to use those principles and that values to help this congregation make its current day transformation. So as you think about stories in your context, how might you unpack those stories in a more purposeful way to think about the kinds of values, the kinds of lessons that you're teaching your congregation and reinforcing through the telling of stories? What are your hero stories? What are your peak stories of glory day eras? What are stories about the times when things went really badly, but someone or some event changed the day? Think about those stories. Think about how to tell them more true, to tell them in a way that honors the rich history of the past, but also empowers people to move forward with greater purpose and integrity that links to the soul of your congregation.